Let's continue where we left yesterday. So we'll go through the same phases. We'll first do deep relaxation, recognize basic state, and so on. So we'll go through the same things, maybe in a bit different way, but so that you understand with each step what we're doing, and hopefully after this weekend you can include the pointers I've given, the little tools that we've used this weekend, that you can use those in your own practice. So take a moment to align your body. Forget meditation. Forget spiritual experiences. Forget spirituality altogether. Like I give two ways for relaxation. The first one, that is more suitable for beginners, let's say people who have not yet opened 11th bhumi and therefore still struggle with the recognition of the basic state. For those people, for those of you, it is easier to, spend time just relaxing the body, relaxing through the body, and eventually when you get through the body, then the basic state and this knowing awareness is easy to discover, it's easy to find, or let's say relatively easy at least. So that's the first option. The second one is to go directly to this basic awareness, basic knowing awareness, and then let the body relax into it. Jarmo, tuolla olisi nyt viluinen kissa oven takana. What is a really good little tool and a pointer that I've mentioned a couple of times this weekend is that especially those of you who have stable recognition, who have Mahasiddha bhumis open, useful tool is to recognize with your whole body, know with your whole body, or try to get that recognition not only in the head area where it is the easiest, but really feel and know with the whole body. So you will go working with that, you will go from, you relax your eyes and you relax your head, and because of that, the light of the beacon shines naturally all around. And then you go from that, connecting that, figuratively speaking, that beacon light into the whole body. So this movement between the head and the body, it kind of puts good kind of stress on the body and mind. And this makes, speeds up the process of perfecting bhumis, speeds up purification, speeds up getting there. So when you're a beginner, you're new to the practice, you're new to these things, then it's good to do the practices step by step, like we've gone in the previous sessions. I've explained in enough detail what we're doing with each step, and then explaining what is happening. And it might take you, depending how much you practice, it might take you a few years, at least a couple of years, to grow out from that beginning stage. But eventually, as you keep at it regularly, you commit yourself to the practice, you make that commitment, then you start understanding, you start seeing the underlying principles behind the practices. You start understanding yourself better. You start seeing yourself in a different light. And not only yourself, but also others, your own actions, the actions of others, happenings in the world, and so on. So at that point, when after a couple of years, what is expected, what you can expect is that you kind of make the practices your own. These tools, it's kind of like you borrow the tools and use them for your own benefit until at some point they become your tools in your own toolbox. So the practices become your own. And at that point, it becomes kind of a play, a joyous play that you enjoy, that feels not only good, but it feels fun and interesting. And when you start understanding the teachings from the perspective of underlying principles, then you know that you can kind of start playing with it, playing with the practices. Not playing like making a mess, but you kind of relax, and just like a master carpenter uses the tools in a very in a different way than a new carpenter. Exactly like that. You gain skill. You get more and more skillful as the hours of practice accumulate. And until then, just I recommend you to commit to practice. The way how I teach is very straight to the point. I don't give extensive lectures or history, or I don't speak about biographical information. I don't speak about the history of the lineage and such things. I focus on the practice, and I try to teach Dharma practice, yoga practice in a way that is easy as possible for you to understand, and that you can apply from the start. But it is you, the students of the Sangha, who have to do the work. I've done my work, and it's your turn to do yours. To help yourself. To help yourself to illuminate your own mind, to release your own knots for the sake of all beings. And of course, nobody is forcing you to practice. If you do not want to practice, I won't tell you to practice anyway. The Four Noble Truths that was taught, the first teaching of Shakyamuni Buddha, can be summed up in two, noblest, most noble truths. And those 2 points are that because we have self-delusion, that's the reason we are confused. That's the first one. And the second one is that we can practice to remove that self-delusion and confusion. The second one, practicing and using practice, using yoga to remove those self-delusions, is based on understanding that our pain, confusion, suffering, dukkha is in our own mind, not outside. First and foremost, it is inside our minds. It doesn't mean that, if you are worried or anxious or stressed out about some factor in your life, anything from a bad job to not having enough money, having your car break down all the time. Your car is not, for example, if you have a car that breaks all the time, that is not caused by your self-delusion. So what I'm trying to say is that, we can and should try to better our life circumstances, get a new car, get a better job that we enjoy more and that is meaningful for us. We should do all those things, try to at least. But as practitioners, the context is existential confusion, existential suffering. So that's why practitioners, that's why I say that first and foremost we should seek to release our pain and confusion by watching our minds. And that happens through the techniques that your teacher teaches you. So, if and when you have discovered that your main problem is that of self-delusion, and you have connected with any good teacher, then you or we are extremely fortunate. Very few people in this world have that fortune. The thing is that even though sometimes people have awakening experiences, first bhumi opening, without practice. Sometimes people have awakening experiences without any how do you say, introduction or practice. Like for example in the case of Eckhart Tolle. There are others like him, but he's the, in our time, most famous. So these things do happen. Awakenings do happen. But there is absolutely no chance of becoming fully enlightened, becoming fully, completely liberated without practice, without a teacher. And like I was saying earlier, that Vajrayana masters, tantric masters say that you can't become a Buddha without perfect tantric teachings. I agree to that. There is maybe one exception among 100 or one among 1,000, but that's pretty much the rule. That you need tantric teachings to become fully enlightened. This is my observation also. I have a question for you. Do you think you can attain Buddhahood in this life? I think most of you indicated yes. I remember I asked that question on the summer retreat of 2019 in Wales, and maybe like a third of the group answered yes. At that time we didn't have any people who had reached the first stage of Buddhahood in our Sangha. But now we do. So I guess that because of that, the answer of your answer is different. Because you know better. It is easier, much easier for you because others have gone before you. So to you it's obvious. Well, of course I will. It is my prayer, it is my wish that such attitude, such possibility becomes more and more available to others as well in this world. If at any point of your path, if at any point in your practice you start feeling like this is not going anywhere, I don't feel motivated to practice, practice is boring, not interesting, there's a couple of things in that situation that you can do. Or actually several things. First one is to remind you why about those two noblest truths. The first one. Connect again with the fact that you're a samsaric being. Remind yourself how life in confusion is. What it feels like, tastes like. Daily life. Sometimes I've heard people pray that, they pray their gurus, or if they pray to God, they ask God to help them to practice or practice better, like help me to commit to my practice. I never understood that. It sounds silly to me. Why? Because if you suffer and you know there is a way out, it creates a natural need to do and to commit to practice. You don't need the help of a guru or God or anybody to to give you some motivation to commit to practice. Sure, sometimes we might need some encouragement, but I find that the best, the purest, the best kind of inspiration to practice comes from understanding that I am fucked. And that if I don't unfuck myself, then the trouble, confusion, delusion and painful life just keeps going on. And it keeps going on even after when my body dies. Does it make sense to you? Maybe you have had, maybe I will say a little bit about that. Well, we can see samsaric life all around us. We can see it in our friends, relatives. We can, most of us anyway, we have older relatives, those who are getting closer and closer to their passing away. And what I've noticed, I'm not really close to my family or relatives. That's just the way it is in my family. But what I've noticed of them is that, that samsara is real. I was speaking about how we get more tense and more rigid, more invested in our beliefs and worldviews the older we get. This is very easy to see from people, especially when getting to 40 and over 40 years old. people start to get really stuck in their views. There are many accounts of, I've also spoken about, sometimes my friends, students have asked me to help if some of their relatives have passed away, for example, and I've helped them. So I've had opportunities to see how ordinary people who are not practitioners, how they die and what happens after that. And I hope you get also that chance to observe when somebody you know dies, so you can see yourself that what happens to non-practitioners. But there are also many books and stories, online talks, interviews about this, what people experience as non-practitioners when they die or when they have a near-death experience. The point that I'm trying to make is that when we get stuck, we start to think in certain ways, self-centered ways, and then we develop some views and view of the world. That karma, those habit patterns, samskaras, vasanas, they don't just disappear. They don't vanish without a cause. Not during when we inhabit the body, and also not during when people die. And when people die with rigid views, with heavy karma, it's a very unfortunate situation, because it's kind of like think of a gas balloon in a very strong storm. It gets thrown away everywhere. This is what happens. And then, you're forced to take, one is forced to take a new rebirth quite soon and all that. So it's like you're a rag doll being blown away and moved by your heavy karma, and you being thrown to your next life. According to your karma. Doesn't sound that great, isn't it? But this is exactly what happens with a lot of people. Maybe people don't have like heavy karma, but still, it has weight. And these things happen. When you're not aware of your mind, where the karma and samskaras, habits, patterns keep going on, they just keep doing it from lifetime to the next. So at one point of this retreat, like I often speak, I was mentioning the 6 realms. I was speaking about demonic realm, hungry ghost realm, animal realm, human, demigod, and God realm. these 6 basic realms. The only ones who are outside this massive wheel, if we think of the class of human beings, we have human beings on Earth. To my knowledge, there are no human beings on other planets, only on this planet. And there's about 8 billion of us. Isn't it? 8 billion. So so if we look at the human experience from all kinds of human experiences that we can see, people can be extremely poor in really bad circumstances from birth until death. On the other extreme, you have people who have everything, and then there's everything in between. And then if you think that how many practitioners there are among the 8 billion, how many people, in Buddhism there is a term mind stream, but maybe I could just simplify it and say that how many beings are able to become liberated while in human body. Not many, very few. Even if there are, I don't know, tens of millions, maybe 100 million, couple of 100 million meditators around the world, it is still a completely different thing to open the first bhumi or second or third bhumi than to become completely liberated. So my point is that we can have a very different types of human experiences, but we can also become Buddhas being humans if we have the necessary requirements. There was something I was gonna say, but it slipped my mind. So one thing that we need to do as practitioners is to become, again and again, become aware what is going on in our minds, interrupting that constant flux of thoughts, ideas, views, and observing it as if under a microscope, and weeding out the sense of self, me, I, from those thoughts, memories, plans, wishes. Making the subconscious conscious. I was describing the samsaric experience the other day, and then asked if you could imagine how it might feel if you didn't have any of that samsaric functioning at all. So when we are on Bhumi Zero, then there is a how do you say, a large terrain that we are not aware of in ourselves. Our mind is mostly subconscious. Sub meaning below the lid of conscious awareness. And if we think of a Buddha or a Mahasiddha, they don't have subconscious mind, only conscious mind. Because the whole karmic bank or karmic vault has been seen through gradually, step by step, one section after the other. Gwen was saying yesterday when we practiced that others might have the same experience or similar experience, that you suddenly remember or even re-experience something painful from your past that you had forgotten. Or you remember something that was unpleasant. And this is a sign that, when you suddenly remember something that you thought you had forgotten, it's a sign that you're reaching deeper into the subconscious mind. Because the thing is that the subconscious remembers, it's not exactly everything, but it has files of everything important that has happened in your life and other lifetimes, but let's focus on this one. So it records stuff. And especially when we talk about traumas, we talk about this deluded sense of self, these are recorded on our system. These are actually like if you have a vision of your subtle body, of your chakras and nadis, centers and channels, you can actually see that they are like tubes. The channels are like tubes, and they are as if stamped or printed on top of the channels, these your experiences, your memories. So, self-invested thinking, rigid views, traumatic experience that create the self, all recorded, stamped, imprinted on your channels. So when we talk about becoming aware of what is going on in our minds, you're working with your energy body. You're working with those imprints and little by little erasing, removing, sanding them. How do you say sanding? Like sandpapering? Yeah. And in that way you're returning the system to its natural condition. And of course, when we have the unfortunate experience that, let's say that we have developed a poor self-esteem, for example. If, our parents or our siblings have told us that you're worthless, you're nothing, you can't do anything good, you just fail every time, so don't even try anymore, something like this. And over time it is imprinted on our system. It leaves a mark, a big mark that shapes our psyche and shapes our experience as an adult later. Not only that we have that poor self-esteem, we think that we are not worthy, that we can't be successful, we can't succeed, not to mention maybe we think that we can be happy and joyful, that we don't even deserve that. I sometimes hear that from my students, that they have this pattern. But then, you might also have social anxiety because of such treatment. You don't like to be around people very much because, you have learned that people mean that you are put down. You might be scared of people. You might get scared of life itself. It adds up. But whatever it is, whatever is imprinted on our system, it was put there so it can also be taken out. It didn't come with the Buddha nature. It is just there imprinted on the channels. Different yogic and tantric scriptures, they speak about the subtle body. And I've also spoken about this at length. But to briefly explain, chakras or energy centers are like it's like a bundle of nadis, bundled like a, how do you say, crossroads. Like when you look from above a city where there's a network of roads and then there's crossroads. Do you say that, crossroads? Yeah. So it's like that. So you have energy coursing through that crossroads, that center, just like prana, vital energy flows through it, through all those channels. So we have many of those. We use, I don't know, several dozen of those inside the body in our system of practice. And then we also have tens of thousands, maybe 100,000 channels that are like thin threads. You can think of a small room, and you can think of that room being full of spider threads. That's how many nadis we all have. But the nadi, it has each nadi, it has two layers. So it has the top layer and it has the inner core. If we think of like an electrical wire, it has the outer, the rubber shield, and then it has the inner core, the steel inside. It is exactly like that. So the karmas are imprinted on the outer layer, and the inner steel part in an electrical line remains pure. So the inner part always remains pure. And that's why even samsaric beings can recognize Buddha nature. That's why when you get pointing out instructions and transmission, such as this one, that's why your mind shifts from the self-based mode to selfless mode. You shift from the outer layering to the inner core of nadis. And you feel like you light up, right? And then, just like I was explaining earlier, we have the selfless mode that you need to recognize first to then integrate all those spoiled parts or parts of your psyche that store those negative imprints, traumas, karmas, integrating that part back. So from the selfless, you look back into the self habits. So technically speaking, that's exactly what happens in the nadis when you do practice like we do it. If you didn't have the selfless mode and you just didn't have it, you just started working on your habits, formations and such, it will be much more difficult to sort out, to see through. But we do the way we practice because it is more efficient. And also, as you know, we have all kinds of techniques, visualizations, mudras, tapping, combing, dynamic concentration, vajra bodies, vajra breaths, all these things. That's how we are cleaning out the imprints. This is our toolbox in Amrita Mandala. That's how we get the job done. By going directly into the subtle body, going into the physical body, and applying all the knowledge that we have. We can even, whether we are in Bhumi opening phase or Bhumi perfection phase, we can go directly to the Bhumi layer, those centers, those auric layers in the aura that is next on the list. I've explained this in detail in Rainbow Body Yoga materials in masterclasses of Tantra. All right, I've been talking for an hour about a whole bunch of things. So have you relaxed throughout this rambling? So, if and when you have relaxed, then we will shift our focus again on soft energy, healing energy. And let's start with one of our basic prayers, basic motivation, by stating silently or aloud that I want to attain Buddhahood, perfect enlightenment, for the sake of all sentient beings. I want to attain full and complete enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings. And this is what I want to do, and this is what I will do. For the sake of all sentient beings. we simply express our motivation, we express our intentions, and what happens is that we are flooded. It's like being born anew. Is that how you say? Being born again. It's like you pop out of this bubble into a fresh, new experience. That's the shift in the nadis. The less you have stored in your nadis, the smaller the shift gets over time. And it has this loving, caring, soft, kind quality, energy. Enjoy that. Take it in again. You can again ask, does it feel safe? Can it be trusted? For the sake of attaining the ultimate goal of becoming a Buddha, may the energy of pure love, kindness, compassion, happiness, and joyfulness increase in our system to wash away our pains, to wash away our traumas, for the sake of all beings. Okay, stay with it, stay with the energy, lie down.